You're listening to an Airwave Media Podcast.
Feel like who art Ed?
Try to slice it.
Who art is Mr. Wood, art Ed me?
Good. Either way, it's ambiguous. It works on so many levels.
I know.
That's off to a great start.
Welcome to Who Arted, Weekly Art History for All Ages. I'm your host, Kyle Wood, and today I have part 2 of my interview with Laurie Roberts. Last week, she was talking about her late husband, Laurie Roberts, the abstract expressionist painter who did amazing work. If you haven't listened, go back, check that episode. But now Laurie is an artist and a designer in her own right, and I am pushing it by asking her to talk with me once again. Laurie, thank you so much for being so generous with your time.
Oh, thank you, Kyle. It was such a pleasure speaking with you on Larry and his art that it only felt natural for me to continue this conversation with you and go ahead and delve into myself.
Well, I appreciate it because I know in some ways it can be very uncomfortable talking about yourself and your own work. And so I appreciate your willingness to sort of lay it out there for us. So, you know, you are a designer and you have talked about, you already hinted at like your other business with the upholstery and everything like that, that Larry was robbing from you to make his frames. But can you tell our listeners about what kinds of stuff you're doing, your design work, and how you got into that?
Well, so my other business, I actually design drapery, and I work with designers around the country where we're doing custom window treatments for them. And I have an amazing team of artisans who are absolutely fantastic. I give them all the credit. I'm just the one that goes out and says hello, and they make the magic happen. And with Laurie Roberts Chicago, that's the doing the textiles, wallpaper, rugs, and his art, obviously, on that part of it. I don't even know, how did I get into this, Kyle? I don't know. I've had many different, I would say, careers before I started Primo Interiors. What happened, it just kind of happened by accident, where I knew one day I was managing many different sectors, and I've been in manufacturing, I've been in retail, I've been in pattern making, as far as with working with a manufacturer of clothing, multiple things. And then I've always been, Larry's manager and partner there as far as handling the art. And I knew that one day I wanted to be my own boss. I knew it was inevitable. And what I did is I learned along the way of those things, what works and what doesn't work, and how do I want to have my business? And how do I want to treat people who are working with me and create a great work environment where creativity can flourish? So that is how I started Primo. And during that time, actually, Larry was also, doing whatever he could do to support me, because now I left my paying job to go start a business. And he was like, I'm behind you 100%. Do it. You can do it. And so that's kind of how Primo started. It wasn't easy. And it'll be 21 years in January since I started that business. And then naturally, going into the textiles and the wall covering, that just seemed natural. I've already worked with that, with those materials, and I understand repeats. So it was shortly after Larry passed in 2019. In 2020, there was a painting that I thought would look amazing as a rug, and that was during COVID. And I started a conversation with a weaver out of India. And I sent the file, said, could you change this, put this into a rug? Sure. Let us take a look at it. So they did the editing, they transformed it, sent it back to me, and I approved it. We picked out the palm colors. They made that rug. It came in. We unrolled it, and we went, what is this? This is amazing. It's something completely different that you don't see anything like it on the market. I thought, well, shoot, should we start doing area rugs with this art? I think we should. This is amazing. And what a great way to reimagine his painting in a different way, because there's only a certain amount of paintings he's never going to paint again. And it also was hard for me I took everything off the market because I was like, I can't let anything go. They're mine. I can't. So how could I share, though, what he created in another way? And that's how the rug line started.
So that to me seems really interesting. I think a rug, there's such the history of fine art carpeting and stuff like that, especially, in other parts of the world,
Yes.
But then I start to think about, like, if you take a painting and translating that into a rug, that's going to completely alter the depth and the way that the color is. And I'm curious about that process, because I'm just trying to picture, like, how would I even do that? Are you saying they basically took an image of the work, and then do they put that on whatever, I don't know the term for it. This is not my area of expertise, but I'm thinking, like, you would almost you can't just, like, silk screen it over the top of a rug.
No.
Like, you've got to have, like, that on the underlayment or whatever. And then are they taking, like, so many different colored bits, and, like, every bit of that pile that's going up is, like, color matched, like it's a mosaic of a bazillion threads or something? Like, how does this happen?
I learned a lot. I've been to India several times. Actually, Larry's rugs are in India. They had a large launch for him in Mumbai at the showroom there. But when I went my first time, I didn't know what to expect. I walked in and I brought prints as well. So what I did is we sent the photograph of the art that is in the file. They then took it and translated it. So they're actually going in, their artisans within the corporate headquarters, who are their designers, who are taking it then, and they're putting it in, and they're now starting to pick out and define Larry's work. So, which is very hard because it's very organic.
Yeah.
And this was, they've been in business since the 1800s, and it's the premier rug maker in all of India. They said Larry's rugs are the hardest rugs they've ever made.
I would have to imagine, because it's not neatly laid out.
No.
There's nothing linear about it.
No.
And then you're having to take so many different things, and the depth to the color also makes it confusing about where to draw the line. If you were trying to, like, I'm imagining they do something almost like converting it to a vector, right? Where it's like, it's almost like flattening some amount of the color and trying to define edges to make almost like an illustration version of it. Didn't they used to refer to the guides as cartoons for tapestries and stuff like that? Right.
Yes.
So I imagine you're trying to do something like that. And it's hard for me to wrap my head around how that would be. So I guess I feel validated that the people who actually do it are saying, yes, this is really hard to wrap our head around, even for the experts.
Exactly. That's what they said. And they said every single rug that's made will never be exactly like the other one, because each weaver, there was only a select group of weavers that can make these rugs that are employed there. One might have a little bit sharper line here or a different line there, because there is nothing to follow exactly. It's going to be a little bit of an interpretation. But what they do is they change that. And so, like one of the rugs that I have here in my office, they, as it's going through, you could have maybe 3 or 4 colors that are peppered together to get that shadowing
Yeah.
of the colors that were mixed in. And it's so organic and free flowing that some of these rugs have 30 some colors in them. And there's one rug that's on the website, and the name is escaping me right now, but I will tell you, Evergreen Enigma. And this rug, I was there, and they had, I think we were at 30. I don't know how, the high 30s maybe. I was in India, and I'm looking at the print that I had with me, and we're doing the palms, and because we're going back and forth. I was working there with them, and I said, "Wait a minute, this orange dot, this orange part right here is missing." They're like, "But that'll add 3 more colors." I go, "But it has to be there. I understand that, but this orange, this one piece of orange, if it's not there, it's not the piece. It's not the rug. The rug will not be great." And so they added those 3 colors of orange, and it's magnificent with that orange spot.
I'm on LarryRobertsChicago.com right now looking at the image of the one you're talking about, and yeah, it does need the orange.
It has to have
I
the
agree.
orange, right?
But it is also still just like it is amazing to me to think of this as, the pile, whatever
Yes.
material of a rug,
The
and
wool and the
not
silk.
not just something like stamped with the image of it. Like it is
No.
an amazing, and as you describe, like the weavers making this, it's like they almost become collaborators in the piece, having to figure
Yes.
out where the lines go and where the color gradations that are going to occur through however many different pieces of material are going into there.
That's right. It's mind-blowing watching them and understanding how you're taking it from here, interpreting it, plotting it out, and then those weavers then are taking it, and they just know. They have that layout, and they know, okay, now I have to switch to this coloring, and how I'm mixing these 3 colors together, and it's going to be peppered right here to get that shadowing to then go into the next section. It's a craft and an artistry. It is unbelievable what the weavers can do. It's unbelievable.
And now, your design business is more than just the rugs. I shouldn't say just the rugs, because the rugs are amazing, but it is more than rugs.
Yes.
You design all sorts of stuff, and I feel like we got to go back a little bit, because you can tell I'm just the process nerd here, but
I love it.
I am curious, like, what was your inspiration to start going? Like, did you always have a design sense? You said you've done stuff in other fields. You've done pattern making and stuff like that. Were you always inclined towards design and art, and then the interior rugs and draperies and that stuff is where it ultimately ended up? Or like, what was your journey in the arts and the applied arts, the industrial, however you want to define it? I feel like we change terms all the time, but you know what I'm getting at.
I do, and with that, it's hard to say exactly. I feel like it just developed over time. I was how you want to rearrange your house all the time. I want to rearrange my furniture. I want to do this. I want to change this. I want to paint this. I want to do this.
Yeah.
So I was always, Larry was like, okay, we're rearranging again. I'm like, yeah, but let's try it this way. It feels better. I was one of those people who constantly wanted to rearrange. I always loved to look at interiors. I loved art. I also was influenced when I was in grade school, going to art class, and I loved it because you just sat there, you created, and then you're like, look at this finished piece. This is so cool. I did this. And it was this sense of accomplishment. And then looking at it, and you also just kind of going inside yourself and having quiet moments, which today that's hard to find, right? To have a quiet moment. And back then, even those quiet moments, it was that time of you just sit and you kind of channel, am I happy? Am I sad? What am I doing? So this always was a part of me, and I would do some writing, but then Larry really got me into the art as far as I loved painting, I loved theater. And again, being from a small town outside of I was from an even smaller town than, Grand Rapids. And so coming from there and being exposed to art in Grand Rapids and being around creative processes with the jobs that I had, I found it fascinating. And then it made me want to create, even though I was like, I'm no good. And I would look at Larry's stuff and he would be so excited when I would come and paint with him. And I'd just be in the studio. And then I'd, be painting, but then he'd say, no, it's good. And he was so encouraging. But I was like, this doesn't look good compared to your painting. So I had a hard time differentiating that, but I enjoyed it. And, sometimes life gets in the way and your creativity can be stumped, right?
Yeah.
And that happened to me for a period of time where I did feel like how carefree I was and how imaginative I was. It took a backseat and it kind of was covered up because then other things with life got in the way. And I would have moments when they would come to the forefront when Larry and I were able to talk about art and I could look at his art and I could be part of that process. And so he always kept it there, but I feel like I've been rejuvenated on that end for me. And what I mean by that is I'm taking his art that I appreciate and I can see patterns in it. I can see movement in it. And I think, what would that look like if I take this corner or this part of the painting, and then I can visualize different patterns and repeats that I could make. And then what if we recolored it? And what if we did this, where we keep the original brush strokes, but we also reimagine it with different coloring and not using the entire piece, but using parts of it. And so I feel like I'm creating with him, even though he's not here. We're creating something together with what he left here.
That is a beautiful thought of, like, the work that you're still collaborating, that connection remains. And you said the first piece that you looked at of his that you thought you could translate to another medium was a rug. And we have already said how just ridiculously difficult that was as a starting point, that you had to fly halfway around the world to find people who could figure out how to do it.
Right.
When you pick a work to translate to another thing, is it just like, are you trying to translate as many of his pieces as you can to keep the connection and expand and give it new life in all these different dimensions? Or is it just like you're walking through the house, seeing your collection, and all of a sudden you see a piece that speaks to you and you think like, oh, this one needs to be translated? You see what I'm saying? Like, are you trying
I
to,
do.
Do you have a goal to translate everything, or is it just a select group?
Not at all. It's only going to be select pieces because there's certain pieces that I would not translate and they shouldn't be translated. It's not right for those pieces. It's really, when we started this process, and my team is great for my LRC team too. They are such fans of Larry's work, and they appreciate it, and they think he was immensely, creative and unique. So they get excited. So it's nice to have them to feed off of. And really, what I do is, yes, I could be walking around the house looking, or we're going through the pieces in the studio and we're looking at, or I could be online looking at something, and I was like, oh, that would be insane as a rug, from his catalog.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, we could do that. That would be amazing. And some of them, we may think, but then we lay them out, and what we do is we size them to scale, like in a room, so to speak, virtually, to see how would that look.
Yeah.
And some of them were like, no, that doesn't translate right. So we try to do that prep work up front, and we're trying to be very selective of the pieces that we translate into a rug and to fabric or wall covering. I think it's got to be pieces that I can just visualize. So Kyle, this is the weird thing for me. Like when I go into a house and I'm walking through with the designers, the architects, builders, there's something about it that I can just look at it and I can see this, yep, dot, dot, dot. And I'm going through it, and it's like everything's triggering, everything's firing. And it's the same thing with his art. I can see it and I can imagine it on fabric or wall covering or rug. And I immediately see, oh, this would be amazing as a Roman shade. This would be amazing as drapes. This would be great as pillows. This would be the great on the back of a chair. Like I can immediately go, I can see this. And I don't know what it is. It's just, it's an immediate visualization that I have in my head. I don't know. It's just something that I do, and I don't know how to describe it other than I feel that all of a sudden all these cylinders are firing, and I'm visually conceiving it in my mind. But it's like then getting it out of my mind
Yeah.
onto something else. That's my hard part, because I'm not computer literate like the young, I'm going to say the younger generation. So thankfully I have a couple of people who they get what I'm doing, and I can draw it out, and then they can tighten it up for me. Yeah. And then they say here, and I say, that's it. Because without them, I wouldn't be able to do what I'm doing. I definitely need them. And they are great because they are such a part of the team that we really feed off each other as well and rely on each other and I respect their opinions.
Yeah. And now, after a short break, I want to talk about one of your specific designs just to go through this whole process. We're back with Laurie Roberts talking about how she performs some sort of modern magic that I'm still trying to make sense of, converting these lovely abstract paintings into patterns that they, sometimes it becomes almost like tessellations or like a kaleidoscopic sort of image. And sometimes that feels like it would work, but I can definitely see where it could also go wrong. Like right. I always appreciate people who are doing stuff that feels dangerous to me, because I'm not convinced I could always pull it off or know where the line is on stuff. But you said this started for you. You had a moment, you're looking at a painting and thought, that should be a rug. Do you remember which painting was it that got this all started for you?
Yes, I'll tell you, the rug name is called La Femme, and that was from our first collection. And it was a piece it was part of this series that Larry did, where he taped up one of his painting rooms at the home studio. He taped up, the sheets were about 18 by 24, or no, maybe a little less than that. he taped all this up all the way around the room. And then for the next several months, he went through and he was sketching and painting on every single piece at the same time. And I have a collection of these really interesting works on paper that this was part of. And this piece, it's called La Femme because it's a female form within the painting. And I loved this piece. I had it framed after Larry had passed, and I had it hanging on my wall. And I just went, that piece it would be amazing as a rug. I think this could be incredible. And so I don't even know. I have no idea where the inspiration came from, Kyle. I literally was just sitting there and I went, this would be amazing as a rug. I don't know why. I thought.
And for listeners, if you check the links in the show notes or go to LarryRobertsChicago.com, La Femme is still up on the website. Like I can see the rug you're talking about. It has these lovely blues and greens and these organic shapes. And there's something to me. This is one of those things where it's like I think we all bring our own personal histories to stuff. Yes. As I look at this, I am just getting the best sort of like nostalgia, like piece, because my own personal background in art and art history, my first love that I can remember in art, I still vividly remember being in second grade and they came in to do one of those art awareness presentations and I learned about Monet and the water lilies and, there's 250 paintings of that pond and the floating flowers. And to me, there is something about like Prussian and cerulean coming together, like those different shades of blues.
Yes.
And here we see it feels serene to me as I see these organic shapes in an analogous color scheme. It's all just so harmonious. It wouldn't have been my first thought that this should be a rug, but it absolutely should be a rug. You just had I don't mean it wouldn't have been my first thought. Like, no. I'm not saying I disagree with the thought. No. I'm just saying I lack that vision to translate something. I applaud you for having that unexpected connection because it absolutely works. And I'm amazed that it worked. So, right? I'm amazed that you could find people who could do this so well. And you already talked a bit about like that process, going to India and meeting with the people and them weaving this and doing the sort of handmade artisanal translations and everything. Yes. But I'm curious, as you talked about this, you said it was he was making all of these drawings and everything like that, all around the room and so hard at work. So was this, did you cropped a part of the section, the piece?
No, this is
the full piece.
That's the full piece. So what he did is each individual piece was about that size that I was, 15 by 24 or whatever that is. And so even though they were taped next to each other, like each piece was its own piece.
Okay.
So he was going around with probably, there had to have been at least 20 pages stuck to the wall. And he was doing all 20 paintings at the same time.
Okay. So they're all individual panels that he's painting across all of them simultaneously.
On paper.
And so this is not like the image of the rug is the image of the whole collection and one single panel. That's what I'm trying to figure out. Yeah.
One single panel.
Okay. So this was a single panel from a larger multi-paneled piece.
Yes. Which he created them all at the same time, but they all are individuals. pieces that speak to themselves. Meaning it's not, he didn't do.
They're not tiles in a mosaic, right? You know, they're not like all meant to be displayed as
That's right.
one singular collection. It's not
That's
like
right.
the way we might think of a diptych or a triptych,
Yes.
or, when I think of other multi-paneled pieces, these are a series where he was painting across the entire series, but each one stands alone.
That's right. There's another one from the new collection. It's called Flora's Whisper. And that one it's like a beautiful mauve. And he did that at the same time as well.
And when you refer to these names, are these the names that Larry gave them or that you gave them?
I gave them. So that has been the other fun part. So Larry wrote poetry, and he would always come up with interesting names, and we would talk about names because that was big for him. And I have spots where he's written stuff down while he's painting. It's right next to the painting. Mm-hmm. He's writing something down he needs to get out. And so with each name, when he named a painting, it meant something to him. Otherwise, he had a lot that was untitled because he was like, I don't want to influence it. I want them to just look at the painting, come up with their own decision on that one. Otherwise, he would name them, the ones that he really felt. So once taking it, because it's no longer his painting, it's now been given life in a different form, then I wanted to take it and what does this then translate, and what are things that I could tie back to his painting that would bring that connection, and to say, like, each painting, each rug has a name, and there's something that I wrote about each name, about each rug, so that people can also have a connection of what this piece means. Like Volterra, it had to do with when we were in Volterra, Italy, and we were so taken by the city that we spent an extra night there. And so I'm trying to have a little bit deeper connection of what that piece, or what he was feeling, or what that meant to him, and to bring that into the rugs a bit, to have a little bit of sense, but yet using my own words to express that and to share that. I feel that everything about this is a story, and what better way to tell a story than to give something that makes you feel connected. And I want people to really feel, and I feel the same. When people look at his art or buy a textile or a rug, I want them to go, wow, I'm walking in every day and I get to see this piece of art on the floor, or look at that on my window. That's art on the wall. It's art on my sofa in the form of a pillow. I want it to create an emotion for people. So when they walk in, there's a connection. And they also, when you mix in color and you bring art in your world, it gives you a sense of peace. And I feel that it also calms you and makes you, I feel like it makes you, I don't want to say the world happy, but it gives you a deeper connection maybe with yourself, where you can take a moment and just smile because you love something that's there, and it makes you feel something, whatever that is for you. But to have that. And so that's what I'm trying to do as well with his work, is how could we get that into more people's homes, and for them to experience a part of him and a part of what he created in different ways.
I think there's also something really interesting that, historically there have been perceived divisions between the quote fine arts on canvas compared to the applied arts, the decorative arts, the commercial arts, or, they've used all sorts of different labels. But, I think there's something very cool about crossing those boundaries. You know, a lot of artists have done that in lots of different ways, but I think there's something really nice about using these paintings as source material to elevate the everyday and the
Yes.
lived experience. I think there is something really cool about that, and also I also got to say, on some level, I feel like if I had the rug, I would be terrified to step on it.
You are.
You know what I'm saying?
We hear that every time somebody sees it, like, I can't put this on my floor. I can't. Well, our slogan is, you know, we art for your floors or walls. You can also hang it as a tapestry on your wall.
Oh,
And that's this
absolutely.
amazing piece that's on your wall, you know? So yes, I understand that. Because we get that all the time. But Kyle, I think it's hilarious that you said that too.
Well, I do always like to, to think about like the practical lived experience and what are we like, I love art, but in some ways I find the art world absurd, like I always see the
Yes.
news about like how many millions of dollars something sold for. And I as much as I love the Mona Lisa or any other work from history, it's like, you can do a lot with $1 million. You can, or $500
Yes.
million or whatever a Da Vinci's going for these days.
That's right. That's right.
Like I there are some outlandish things about it, but this I think is really interesting in the way that it kind of forces me to think about, what am I seeing? What am I perceiving? What is this? What is the use of this object? Is this something to literally step on or to look at? And, I can appreciate it on different levels. And I'm curious, where do you see this? How do you see this? Do you see this as, fine art to look at, or, more functional art to live with? Or is, I guess you've already said it's a yes and, but I'd
Yeah.
love to hear your take on it.
Well, I feel that, when you can step back and you're walking through a museum, you're walking through a gallery or someone's home that has a great art collection, it's nice to spend time with those pieces on the wall and to appreciate the art that an artist took their time and created. And art is very subjective, as we all know.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody has different tastes. And yes, the art world I'm not even sure what to say about the art world. That's all I'm going to. That's how much I have to say about it. But for the paintings, it's nice because I do feel that is fine art. There's thought. There's a method to it. There's every single detail's put into it, and I feel that those are meant to be on the wall and appreciated. But I also feel that there'll be people who either are not necessarily into buying this abstract art, but they could appreciate an abstract rug or fabric or wall covering that mean that it resonates with them, that they connect with, where they're still getting something abstract and colorful, but in a different form. And so I guess that would then take on this is functional art of, yes, it's a rug to put underneath your feet and to let your feet walk across this beautiful, colorful rug. Like when I walk into my areas and I see the rugs on the floor, I just smile because I'm like, I love this area. It's amazing. I love sitting in here. It's cozy. I love looking at it. And it makes me smile. Now, maybe I'm biased as well.
Maybe a little bit.
I mean, okay. I'm going to admit that. But I want that I feel like if people could bring that colorful, artful pieces into their home that they can use as function and form, I think that brings another way for art to come in and to affect people.
Yeah. And if we're bringing these items into our home, how do we set it up for success? Just to bring this full circle, because
Yes.
you said Larry was always meticulous about the framing of the pieces and all of
Yes.
that. I'm picturing, these are really bold statement pieces. You put that pillow out, I picture you probably want a neutral. You don't want to put that on another patterned surface, but also I'm not allowed to make decorating choices in my home. So, what are the strategies that we want to be mindful of as we lay out the rug? Are there, does it need to be in a certain family of items and everything? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah, I do. Like I have rugs strewn throughout my house. Like I'm sitting in my home office and I have the rug in here with an Eames womb chair on it. It's blue and the rug is very colorful. So I love this mix of color and how this blue pops on it. But then you go into my bedroom and I have a huge rug, but I have the drapery out of the same. I happen to make fabric out of the same rug painting.
Mm-hmm.
And so I actually have window treatments that are covering the windows made out of the same pattern as the rug. But yet I also mixed on solid furniture. I have another pattern that works in there. Then I go into my dressing room and I have the very first prototype that we had for La Femme in there. And then I have my window treatments from a different fabric, Stargazer, that I did. So you can mix, it's just how you mix those and it's kind of like that visualization of, I may have a solid piece of furniture and I'll have this very colorful, amazing rug. And then you can also pop it with the fabric that's on your windows and on your sofa or your chair. But it's, and I know designers who they're truly talented on mixing the rugs, the fabric, the patterns, and they can mix, 7 different patterns and colors in one room, and somehow it all works. I'm bold to a point, but not that bold or or talented to do that. But I have several designers that I work with that do that, and they're fabulous. Where I'm a little more, let's throw some color and pattern and mix in some solid, so that the pieces speak for themselves, and you can enjoy those and let them breathe.
Yeah. I guess it's kind of like how they say, museums and galleries utilize the blank walls and so much space between pictures. That
Yes.
negative space on the gallery wall is the space for your eye to have a rest, right?
Yes.
For things to breathe and to be calm, so that it's not overwhelming to the viewer.
Right.
And that's where I feel like, looking at these pieces, it makes sense to say like, okay, on a solid or surrounded by other things that are a little bit more neutral to create the contrast, so you appreciate the boldness,
Yes.
but also create a little bit of a visual rest,
Yes.
outside of the patterns and everything.
That's it. I mean, and you do want that. It's the same way that you lay out the art in your home. You want to have space in between to let everything breathe. And certain pieces where you want to be able to really let it breathe because you want to look at the framing on the side and let that and enjoy that from the side profile. So, yeah, I feel the same.
And now, I always like to wrap things up when I'm interviewing, an artist or a designer. A fair number of my listeners are creators themselves, and I'm curious, what sort of parting wisdom or advice, what tips would you give to people to be better creators or more thoughtful, conscientious consumers and appreciating of art?
Well, oh, that's a good question. I mean, like, I hope that what we've talked about today inspires people to take a beat, just stop for a moment and focus on what do I want to achieve and where do I want to go and what do I have to say, and be thoughtful about how you want to say it. It doesn't have to be instantaneous. And I think that's the problem, is that, with social media, everything's so instantaneous, reply to the text right away, do this right away, do this right away. I think we need to slow back down a bit and be thoughtful of how we want our art out there. How do we want this design to come out into the world? What do we want to say? And how do we want to say it? And how do we want it to be shown? What do we want people to feel from it? Because some people they want people to feel a certain way. Some people are going to be more provocative where they want that. It's really about being who you are, not copying other people, being true to the person that you are. And I know that it's hard to do because, of course, you're going to have influences through life and through social media, through everything. But the more that you can be truly who you are, I think the more your art is going to shine and that you yourself are going to shine.
I think there's a lot in there that it is absolutely beautiful and thoughtful. I think, that idea of slowing down and thinking first
Yes.
and then putting something out there is really wonderful. And I agree. I feel like there are a lot of people who have the order of operations wrong in
Right.
people act and speak first and then
Yes.
then think about the ramifications of it after the fact. And in an age where everything is for the clicks and stuff
Yes.
like that. Of course, you want to follow, like, subscribe, and leave 5 stars on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you're listening. But you also, I think you also want to. I think you're right. Like, thinking about who you are and what you want to put out there is so important with whatever you're creating. And even if what you're creating is the words you're saying to someone else,
That's right.
It matters. It
does.
really does matter. And, that will help you to be your best self in any application. I think that
Yes.
that makes a lot of sense. And as much as I shamble through so many of these podcasts and discussions and all of that, I really do try to be thoughtful and conscientious about putting out stuff that's positive and talking to people respectfully and hearing what they have to say. And I've loved this conversation and hearing
Me
your
too.
insights and getting to learn more about Larry and to learn about your own work and your journey and what you did together. And so thank you so much for taking the time to join me. Laurie Roberts, I really appreciate your insights. And once again, listeners, if you want to learn more, check the links in the show notes. But thank you so much.
Thank you, Kyle. It's been such a pleasure talking to you.
This concludes this week's episode of Who Arted, part of the Airwave Media Podcast Network. If you found this tolerable, please leave a rating or review on your favorite podcast app. You can find images of the work being discussed this week and every week on social media at Who Arted Podcast on Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok, and of course on the website whoartedpodcast.com. Podcast done.